welcome back to my channel. This is Tita Lavinia of Tita's Pageantry, and for this episode, I'm going to be giving you my standouts at the recently concluded Miss Grand International 2023 Sashing ceremony. So please make sure you stick around. Please subscribe to the channel as well as hit that bell notification button for your weekly pageant fix. Hey guys, I hope that you're doing well. So I know that a lot of you are pumped. A lot of you are awake after your long slumber from pageant fatigue. We are now starting with the actual pageant season. Yeah, we're testing the waters here. I'm also trying to put out like smaller or shorter episodes for you so that we can keep up with what's happening. And of course, if my schedule permits it, I would also love to do content also for Miss International, but we'll see. I won't commit to that yet, but I'm here. I've started this whole discussion on Miss Grand International. I think we've established excitement because we have a really strong candidate. I will talk more about Nikki later on. So, yes, today is October 7th. Yesterday, October 6th, was an important day for a lot of the girls at Miss Grand International because yesterday was their sashing ceremony and it took place at the Hanoi Opera House. Now, a few hours before this happened, there has been something circulating, at least in the Latin pages, saying that Nawat gave specific instructions to the ladies to tone it down when it comes to their wardrobe because apparently the Hanoi Opera House is sacred ground to a lot of the Vietnamese. So they were really observing respect and, you know, decency. So they didn't want the girls to wear a lot of clothes that were revealing, that had cutouts, that had necklines that were just so low. But we did get a little nervous because although Nikki wore something that seemed covered, her stomach was out and about. But I think I'll try to explain that a little more. So yes, yesterday we also got rid of that hideous sash. I mean, I don't know who approved that. It was a sash that was so wide. It covered most of Nikki's torso, Nikki being skinny and really model-esque, and I was just so ready to get rid of that sash with that murky muddy color. So at least now you can get more of an appreciation for her OOTDs. I mean, I know for myself, I've been quite critical. Her OOTDs hasn't really been that bad, but it also hasn't been mind blowing. But I'm glad that, whatever her team and Nikki is putting out there, it's pretty appropriate. I just wish that they would elevate this because Nikki is, I think, one of our strongest at Miss Grand International. So I'll talk more about her later on. But I have picked 10 girls for you who I thought did really well at the sashing ceremony because by now we are already entering day 5 for most, day 6 for those who were early, and it just seems that we are now establishing the heavy favorites in the bunch. I do have some of the heavy favorites in my list, but surprisingly, not a lot of them really this year. So I'm gonna start with my first pick for the ladies who stood out for me at the sashing ceremony. Number one for me is Miss Angola. Miss Angola, I have been observing her since day one. She looked absolutely amazing. And what I like about her is that from the time she arrived, she has been playing with a lot of colors, a lot of patterns, and a lot of texture in her wardrobe. And this was evident in the gown and the whole look that she thought of when she presented herself at the sashing ceremony. She wore a linear gown, it was strapless, it was as blue as the night sky, and it had blue flowers at the bodice. So the whole look for me, it had a very Armani Privé feels, and it also had a very Schiaparelli look to it with the floral bouquet at the bodice. So I thought that she looked really, really striking. Number two for me is Miss Colombia. She wore an acid green dress. If you look at it closely, the dress has details resembling the ferns on Lala Guedes when she competed at Miss Grand International. Lala was from Brazil, but you could really see a little bit of that fern or leaf pattern in Miss Colombia's dress. Now, if you remember, I also did an episode for Michelle D on what I would love for Michelle to wear. And I remember picking an acid green dress. I think it would look pretty similar. I love the treatment. Miss Colombia, I think, really is one of the strongest, if not the strongest candidate this season. And I also feel that it's really because she's a prototype on two counts. Definitely, she's a Colombian prototype. Right now, we're calling her Alianera Beauty, like Alianera Colombian. So for me, she looks like a love child between Ariana and Camila Avila, this year's Senorita Colombia for Miss Universe. So number three, I'm going to give this one to Miss Dominican Republic. She was in a vibrant red ensemble. She had a vibrant red gown. I think she had like a faux fur wrap. I thought that the styling was directional. It wasn't something new. We've seen it before, but I really like how polished and how clean her presentation was. Number four is another, steady favorite in the competition. I've been observing that a lot of people have been talking about her, and I'm talking about Miss India. She was regal in her two-tone gown. It was red with a little bit of gold, but the styling was also so vintage. I thought it really worked. She looked long, she looked lean, and she really looked elegant. Number five for me is Miss Indonesia. She's actually becoming one of my fast favorites in this competition. I wasn't too keen on the dress that she picked because I know her as like a sexy girl, someone who can really carry a gown, but she went for a tea dress, and I thought that it just seemed so conservative for her type of girl or her type of pageant girl. So I don't know what it was that made the team pick that dress for her. Maybe they were going for that Grace Kelly look. I will also note, because I am such a Harry Potter fan, if you know, you know, her crown absolutely looks like the Ravenclaw diadem. I just thought that I'd mention that. So, number six for me is also becoming one of the fast favorites this edition. Her styling has always been on point, and in fact, her gown was my favorite from all of the ladies at the sashing ceremony, and I will be talking about Miss Myanmar. Miss Myanmar hasn't given us a fashion faux pas. She's been doing absolutely well. I don't know who's handling her, but this gown for me, I think that it's modest. I think that it's also appropriate for what they wanted for the Hanoi Opera House. And it's really very interesting because, it seems like there's a lot of things going on, but the pattern absolutely reminds me of the works of artist Gustav Klimt. So if you're familiar, I will be flashing some photos for you so that you can make a comparison. You'll definitely understand where I'm going for. Next, number seven for me is Miss Nigeria, another one. I mean, when we talk about Miss Grand International, we talk about like really sexy Victoria's Secret type of girls. I don't know what's happening this year. They're giving us a lot of these really elegant ladies. Nigeria is one for me. She was the one who wore a burnt orange gown. It had a voluminous top, and the top was made from iridescent material that, gave off teal blue with a little bit of tangerine, depending on where the light hits the fabric. I thought that it was magical, especially for her skin type, and, her overall presentation. So, yeah, I thought she was really pretty. Number eight, I am going to give this one to Miss Spain. I have noticed Miss Spain from day one. She was the lady who wore a black starry night gown, and it had a little bit of that vintage feel. She looked really very, pin-up pretty. She had the wavy hair. She had the fitted dress. It seemed very 1950s, very 1940s for me. And of course, that pop of red lips and that small waist. So yeah, very pin-up for me. Number nine, I'm going to give this one to Miss Thailand. If I'm going to be very honest with you, I was really underwhelmed by what she wore, considering that she's been, hitting the marks with her styling for her daily OOTDs. The dress actually wasn't so bad. It was just not mind blowing. I mean, it was going to be their first outing as official candidates of Miss Grand. No, not the official, but the first appearance that's so important because of the sashing ceremony. But I also expected like more bling or something with more direction, because what Miss Thailand wore was um, a green gown, like, yeah, a teal gown, but it was darker. It had some embellishments in front, yes, but knowing the Thais, that dress for me seemed like something they would wear on a resort, not for a sashing ceremony. But anyway, she's Miss Thailand. She's always so polished. She's always so put together. So I still put her in my list because she is, of course, still one of the heavy favorites in this competition. My number 10 spot, I'm going to give this one, of course, to Miss Vietnam. Again, she also went for a similar look to Miss Spain, very vintage pinup. I like that they stayed true to their core. I mean, the Vietnamese, they love their mesh gowns, they love their embellished gowns. But what sets them apart whenever we would try to do like the mesh gown thing is that they always have like eyes for quality control. Like, even if they do the mesh gowns over and over again, they make sure that they have like the best materials to use, quality beads, and you could see like how the beadwork really shines. The fringe work is something that really catches our attention because it's just so bright and shiny, and it seems like it's battery powered even. So I like this with the Vietnamese construction of these, really popular mesh gowns in pageantry. So now let's talk about our very own Nikki De Moura. She also was one of my favorites in the whole presentation for the sashing ceremony. I think that a lot of us expected the big hair to make an appearance, but I think that they're also pulling back a little bit because they know that that's Nikki's card, and I just hope that we don't wait too long because I think that she's losing points if she keeps her hair, hidden all the time, because that for me is her identity. So as for her styling, I mentioned that it has been, I think, in the middle. It hasn't been that bad. It's just that because it's Nikki, we want something more, something grand for her because she's so young. I think we still have a lot of criticism or a lot of observations on what would seem appropriate for a young candidate like Nikki. So to put her in clothes that we regularly see in our pageant girls, it just seems so disconnected. But I'm actually quite glad that she chose this, or that her team chose this ensemble for the sashing ceremony. This is a silhouette that really works with Nikki. It really works for her body. My concern is that they would just fall into this type of silhouette because this is, like a sure thing or a sure success if you put like coords on Nikki with cutouts that shows the belly. I think that these are like safe choices. So Nikki wore a cropped velvet top with a mock turtleneck, and the hem of the top had gold floral embroidery. So I like this. It was paired with a simple cut skirt that had sequence. And at first, I wasn't so sure whether it was cohesive, but I later found out, maybe they are really channeling Zendaya. Zendaya recently had an appearance wearing Valentino with something that looks so mismatched. It actually worked. So at first, I thought, maybe it would be more cohesive if Nikki had worn a matching black velvet skirt. But now that I'm looking at it, I think that the contrast is looking way better than when I first saw it last night. So I thought she looked really nice. She looked in control. I'm glad that she had the extensions on because we could really see a little bit of that hair coming out. So Nikki is holding her own. She's not one of the tallest girls in the competition, but I think I wrote down in Titas of Pageantry that she is a Polly Pocket for me. She's really very pretty, and I just cannot wait for a competition that would showcase her body like a swimsuit competition, because I think that there are still some parts that we haven't seen yet. I think that there are still parts of their strategy that we have yet to really encounter. So I am very excited. She's getting a lot of buzz. She is getting a lot of exposure from MGI. I'm excited, but I'm not really, like pushing for a win. I'm not really like pushing for it. I'm just really enjoying the ride because we have a really cool candidate at MGI. So there you go, guys. I will update you if I missed some of the girls who I thought were standouts at the sashing ceremony. Comment down below. I'm sure they will surface in my list in the succeeding days. So for now, I'm going to say goodbye and I'll catch up with you on Sunday. Bye, guys.